Hello tankers and tankettes, welcome to a pair of viewer replays, and today I have a pair of linked machines, and they're actually a bit more closely linked than I initially thought. We're starting off with Sonny Brutus in the Škoda T-40, the first of the Czechoslovakian tanks in the game, and there will eventually be an entire medium branch, but for now it's just the T-40. It's equipped with the Short 88, the rather famous German gun, and there is actually one other medium tank that is equipped with that gun, and it's just pulled into view in front of us, the VK30.01. So I thought, okay, that's probably a decent point of comparison, and it was an even more decent point of comparison than I realised, because when I actually compared the stats, they are pretty similar in quite a lot of ways. Now, if you compare them both with the Short 88, there's a lot of the stats that are in fact just copy-paste from the VK to the Škoda T-40. Same reload, which obviously means same DPM. They both have the same aim time. They both have nearly identical accuracy. And so, in terms of its firepower, it's VK30.01, basically. There are some differences, however. Armour is one notable one. The VK actually has better armour. This thing in theory has, you look at it and it says 65. There's a bit of the upper front plate that's 65 and the turret front is 65. But a big chunk of the frontal arm is actually 40 mil. So this thing is squashy. The VK is still kind of squashy, but it's got some 75 mil bits of front plate. And more crucially, it has 100 mil front plate on the turret, plus the gun mantlet. So the gun mantlet plus the turret front is actually pretty bouncy on the VK. There's even one particular spot where it's equivalent to over 300 mil, just over 300 mil of armour. So that's a big difference. This is a lot squashier than the VK, but it's not like the VK is particularly tough armour-wise either, but this can't hull down in the same way. Another difference is the gun depression. This has 2 degrees less gun depression than the VK, so again, you can't hull down very well in the same way. But otherwise, I think in terms of its kind of mobility and everything, it's largely a very similar machine. In theory, it's slower. It has 10 kilometers an hour less top speed, but the power to weight ratio is the same. The terrain resistances are better, the turret traverse is better, I think the hull traverse is better, although I'd have to run the numbers on that. So it's a little bit slower, it has slightly worse gun depression, but basically it's a premium that is balanced as fully elited, you know, equivalent same tier medium. So that's okay. You'd rather have that than some of the other recent ones we've had, like the Patent 59 or the Canonian Jagdpanzer, where they are balanced as limited matchmaking machines, but they get full matchmaking and therefore kind of suck. This isn't really that, although it still is going to suffer in a tier 8 game, because tier 6 mediums for the most part do suffer in tier 8 games. There's relatively little you can do. However, at least you have a reasonable amount of alpha damage. Now, I think the next best at tier 6 for a non-derp gun is probably the T-34-85. That 85 mil gets, what is it, 180 average, so this is an extra 40 on top of that. And as you can see, Sonny Brutus here, whose replay we're watching, has already done over 2,000 damage, and he's not actually even done yet. So if you get a chance to put this gun to work, if you get good matchmaking like this, you really will feel that that Short 88, its effectiveness. And it's funny, because this, of course, is very famous as being the gun that, in real life, the Tiger H used, and I think the Tiger P prototypes as well. But in World of Tanks, it's not really a good heavy tank gun. It is a really good medium tank gun, although it doesn't scale up to the higher tiers that well with the amount of pen it gets, but it's, I don't know, it's just the nature of World of Tanks, I suppose. So he tries for a shot at that T-34-85, who could just rush him and kill him in 2 shots easily. He could not kill the guy in time, but instead that guy gets distracted by that gorilla. So this is a good opportunity for Sonny to put in a shot or 2. And there's also, if you notice on the minimap, a T-67 coming up the hill as well. So this isn't even just 1 versus 1, this is going to be a 2 versus 1 situation very, very soon. So Sonny doesn't have to really take any particular risks here. There's actually one other difference between this and the VK, which I probably should mention. This gets heat as its premium ammo. It gets 200 pen versus 171 for the APCR on the VK, but it's heat ammo, so you have to be careful about firing it into tracks, into spaced armor, and when you're facing, you know, IS-3s and anything else at higher tiers, you might prefer to have the APCR instead. So yeah, it's got extra pen, but the fact that it's heat is actually sometimes going to count as a downside. So that was an ace tanker for Sonny. He got a top gun and a high caliber. It was very good matchmaking, and it's, I don't know, the nature of this gun meant that it was kind of a deceptive match because he was just running around on the hill the entire time, and yet he managed to rack up 3,000 damage and 6 kills. So you wouldn't look at that replay and think, wow, he really dominated there, but he kind of did. In terms of damage and kills, he was by far at the top of his team, and this being a premium tank, that ended up being a rather profitable game indeed, especially as he didn't actually need to fire any premium ammo. So if you get good matchmaking, this honestly seems like a perfectly capable tank. I did actually play a few battles in it myself. I was given it to preview by Wargaming, but this was at the time where basically I did that video at the beginning of October where I went, you know what, I have had enough of bundles. So that particular boycott, whatever you want to call it, continues. I continue to basically refuse to preview any of these premiums that are coming along. And the latest one, the M4A1, well, it's 2 bundles this time, and one of them's a more expensive bundle and one of them's a slightly cheaper bundle, but it's still a bundle. It's still got some extra stuff thrown in that people might not necessarily want. If they had a bundle and just the tank, then I would have said, okay, fair enough. That's a good move to make. That gives people the choice. But no, it's a pair of bundles. So it's a step in the right direction, but it's not exactly a very big step now, is it? So to the replay at hand, this is Dennis DP, or possibly DP, or I don't know. I think we're going to stick with Dennis. And he is in the VK. And I thought, actually, you know what? Having compared the T-40 to the VK, let's have a VK replay as well. Now this is exactly the kind of situation where the VK is going to outshine the T-40 because the extra 2 degrees of gun depression, it's -8 I believe versus -6 on the T-40, plus that extra turret armor is pretty damn useful. And although the matchmaking isn't quite as good, still there's nothing on the enemy team apart from maybe the KV-3 that is going to be particularly problematic. And the KV-3 is really only going to be a problem from the front. So he's managed to get a couple of shots in on passing vehicles already, and there's a whole bunch of the enemies that have just rushed for that corner in A1. They're not really, as far as we can see at the moment, trying to protect the B line, and well, A1 is artillery safe, and there is artillery in this game, but it's also a pocket where you can get trapped really easily. And I mean, not even that. Whatever it is they're doing it wrong, because a bunch of them have managed to die there very, very easily. They were all just sitting on that corner and, I don't know, sitting there poking out and just getting shot in the face, I guess. So the T-34-85 pushes across as well and takes another hit in the side. And as we can see there, it's a derp T-34. So if that guy pops out, Dennis is probably going to have a good chance to get off the first shot because, of course, he's going to be able to aim better. So he has a little peek to check if there's anything on that corner, and it really doesn't look like there is. The VK meanwhile pops out. Dennis takes a snapshot using auto-aim, and the guy, even though Dennis has fired, backs off. Doesn't then take the time to sit and aim, and Dennis's second shot goes in, does some damage. The guy then does finally fire, but Dennis is able to easily jink back because the mobility on this is pretty good. And on a map like this, I mean, this is I think for the most part considered hard terrain by World of Tanks. So if you've ever played El Haluf, which, you know, if you've played World of Tanks beyond like tier 2, you almost certainly will have, you'll know that it's a very good map for your fast medium tanks to be able to achieve their full potential in terms of whizzing around the place. So there's literally nothing protecting the backsides of these guys, so he's able to get in there, get that kill shot on the T-34-85, and I think he's basically taking the entire health pool of the T-34. But there's enemy artillery, and the KV-3 turns to look at him, but someone else kills him, so that's fine. But he can't hang around in that that particular position he was in, because the Locastan, which is what shot him, has a pretty fast rate of fire. You don't want to let that thing take you apart. It's basically like a Burt or a Bishop. It's a 105mm gun. In fact, I think that's even a bigger gun than the Burt and the Bishop get. That's I can't even remember. They're like 94mm. I can't remember. But anyway, 105mm arty derp, and very fast firing, relatively accurate. This is artillery from the old days, the Locastan. It didn't get hit by the various changes that have affected most artillery, because it's a premium one, and wargaming don't tend to change premium vehicles very often. Like things like the nerfs and subsequent buffs, which there was a lot of patches in between, to the Super Pershing are pretty rare. So he flanks and gets very unlucky. That's the rear of a Tiger, and it just, I don't know, hits the engine deck at a ricochet angle, but he's able to reload very easily to get the kill, so that's fine. We're now at just over 2,500 damage. He's got 2 kills. They've easily won this flank. Well, I say easily, actually. The T-29 is the other sole survivor. The allied tanks that he was with, I mean, they pushed around and they kept pushing, but they took a fearful beating in the process. But at this point, they have very definitely won. Now, there are some tanks pushing around from the south, a Hellcat and a VK30.01D. Their team actually has a Marder 2 for some reason. There was a bit of failed platooning going on there. 38 NA, which of course gets some scout matchmaking, and the Marder 2, which is a tier lower, so that's why there's a Marder 2 in a tier 6 game. So, yeah, they might hopefully have learned from that, maybe. There's also a Dickermax and a Jagdpanther that, well, the Dickermax is actually being more proactive than the Jagdpanther, as we can see from the minimap. So most of those tank destroyers, I think, don't end up with that great of a score. I mean, the Jagdpanther's got a pair of kills, so okay, fair enough, but it's also a fairly mobile machine, so if there was ever a time to move up and use that mobility. Anyway, there's a T-150, which Dennis tried to take a shot at earlier, and actually his armour might be a little bit problematic for this gun as well, and he's a derp T-150 as well, so he's got the 122mm derp. If he's firing heat, that could be nasty, but even if it's HE and pens, and it is HE and it doesn't pen, it does knock out his driver though, there was no way he was going to get one-shotted unless it was an ammo rack or something. So anyway, he takes out the T-150, and he actually loads up HE so that he can have a pop at the last remaining machine, artillery. Apologies if you can hear dogs, by the way. Yes, I'm at my parents' for the weekend, so they've managed to not start woofing or anything, but anyway. So he gets a just above average HE roll on the M44, and there we go, that's the end of the match. So, another ace tanker, a high caliber, this time no Top Gun or anything like that, but still it was a pretty good match, and he did almost as much damage as Sonny Brutus was able to do in that first match, and it took him a little bit longer, but the mobility of the VK came in very useful there. And although overall this is the faster machine, I don't think you're especially gonna feel the difference that much with the T40. It's 50 kilometers an hour versus 60, and so 50 is still pretty fast, and it has better terrain resistances, so it's probably going to accelerate better in a straight line. It's one of these things where it's like 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, to use the well-known phrase, or at least well-known to me anyway. So there we go. I had hoped to get this one up yesterday, but as I think I mentioned at the start, there was a whole bunch of technical derps, and then I had to check my new card was behaving and all that kind of thing. But anyway, I plan to do at least one more video over the weekend. I don't know if this is going to be quite a regular video production schedule, but we'll see, and you'll get to hear dogs walking up and down on wooden floors again, probably. So, if you have enjoyed this pair of replays, you can leave any comments below, you can hit the like button, you can subscribe to my channel, and, as always, stay tuned for more.